What the hell makes Attack on Titan so good? I don't mean like individually, right? Isaiah and I both like the show. There's no secrets there. But what makes this so good amongst everyone? What makes this so good in the eyes of people who don't even really watch anime? What has propelled this show to the absolute top when it comes to the greatest anime ever created? Isaiah and I are here today to discuss said topic and give some of our thoughts on why we think Attack on Titan is one of the best to ever do it. And I know, Isaiah, you had a lot of thoughts on this. You were the one who actually came up with this idea and this topic of discussion. So why don't you start us off?
So I think that a lot of what makes Attack on Titan so appealing to people is that it does hit a lot of the beats that your typical popular anime hit. But there is some real depth in the idea of like the way it explores war, right? I mean, you know, it's no secret that like a lot of Attack on Titan is about, you know, what a over-militarized society looks like and like what war does to people in sort of the long stretch, and essentially the conflict of like hating somebody for really no reason, right? Or not being able to even understand where your hate for something or someone or an idea comes from. You know what I mean? A lot of the, like, you know, a lot of the people on Paradise Island at the beginning, you know, you're told like they hate Titans, right? And it's because Titans eat their people. But it's like, where do the Titans come from? Why are they doing this? And then, you know, once you get to the point in the story where you learn about the whole Eldians and the Marleyan thing, same thing, Marleyans hate the Eldians. But it's like, do the Eldians know why? Do the Marleyans even like, you know what I mean? There's this idea of like inbred hatred throughout the different generations where it's like people get to a point where they just hate something to hate it and don't even really understand why, or like, you know what I mean? If you ask them why, they wouldn't be able to tell you. But I also think there's a lot in it about like what's right and what's wrong, right? The conflict of Attack on Titan, at least up until you get to season 3, you know, you're largely to believe that like Eren and his, you know, his core group of friends and characters are the protagonists. They're the heroes of this story, and they're going to eradicate all the evil Titans. But once you learn that those Titans are human beings, and then you learn there are more, like, I guess, evolved or complicated Titans, such as the Colossal, Armored, and the Female Titan, and then you meet Zeke, and then again, end of season 3, into season 4, you learn about, like, who those Titans were before they were Titans, and that there's a whole nother civilization that is under a different kind but the same level of oppression that like the people on Paradise Island have been on. Again, you start as a viewer start to lose perspective on like who is right in the story, who is doing like the noble thing, is there a noble thing to do, and are you wrong for wanting to pick a less noble outcome to this story. I think that like that conflict is so engaging to people because it's not, it's not clear. There is no like, well, you just got to do this, like, or just do that thing, and like all of this is wrapped up with a nice bow. You know, so I think that on top of again hitting a lot of the, you know, the core beats of a good anime that I think people like, with the, like, your incredible action, very well developed characters, very good pacing, just sort of mixes for this like, you know, it sounds cliche, but just this incredible story, you know, this story that like really hits on all accounts. And it doesn't, I've never met anybody that straight up doesn't like Attack on Titan and doesn't have like, and has an objective reason why, you know what I mean? And something leaning into the realm. And I'm sure I can already see comments now of like, actually, I didn't find Attack on Titan that good. First off, you're wrong. Second off, it's just like, I don't know. I think that, like I said, a lot of it is just the way that this story handles its structure. I don't know.
Plain and simple. No, I agree. And I think you said it very well. And I think one of the core things for me in this is how closely relatable this story is in such a weird way. It's so human at the end of the day, right? Like these stories, whether it's be on an individual basis or as a civilization or whatever the case might be, hits on some very major and important points that are relative to real life scenarios, right? It highlights the atrocities of racism, in it, whether it be against the Marleyans, the Eldians, whoever the case might be, right? It highlights the dangers of, you know, colonialism when taken too far. These people have basically, and again, if you haven't noticed by now, there's some spoilers. The Eldians have kind of, in a weird way, imploded in and on themselves, right? And self-destructed from the inside out with all the infighting and everything that goes on. They've become their own greatest enemy. And just the struggle for survival, right? When you talk about the people on Paradise Island, especially within the confines of the first 3 seasons, these are people that are on the brink of death and they have to, not that they're willing, actually. I think that's the wrong term. They have to do whatever it is they can to live. And a lot of times that means overwhelming amounts of sacrifice. And it's something that's really dark. And a lot of people would hate to be in a situation obviously like that. And it's hell. It's hell on earth is what it is. But it's this human struggle. There's something about it which is relatable. You're rooting for these characters in that sense. And I think other anime can do that. But I think that this anime, and I don't know why, but it touches on just the right amount of dark and light within it that really just, that brings you in, that kind of reels you in with it, right? When you go from like the funny moments of, you know, Sasha with a potato to the darkest moments within this series, those moments really hit hard because they are, you know, in a strange way, even if you haven't experienced them, which God forbid anyone has, relatable in the sense that it strikes the essence of what it means to be a human. I think for me, that is what one of the main components of this show's success is in that regard. You know, that's my personal thoughts at face value, you know, but
I think the other thing is that, like, because again, this show hasn't, like, in everything it's done, has not broken new ground, so to speak, right? Like we were saying, there are a lot of shows that do handle storytelling in a very similar manner, but I think there's something about, like, the literal, like, layers of complexity this show has, where it's like you can get as much out of this show as you invest into it, right? There is a lot of lore in the show, and there's a lot of history, and there's a lot of things to pick up on and things to go through and things that are alluded to, etc. But you don't have to get that out of this if you don't want to, if you don't go looking for it, right? You can come at this show at the same level of surface that you would any of your big name hit shonens, or, you know, etc., and get, like, oh, damn, this was like a pretty cool action story with, like, you know, some fun characters and some very, like, messed up and crazy themes. But it's like, again, as we just discussed, if you go further, you can really start to, like, sink your teeth into something that is, like, really talking about the human experience and, like, what it means to survive, what it means to live, what it means to, like, be a part of a society or a group of people, whether that is, like, something that's militaristic or something that is, you know, your common everyday scenario. And, like, also what it means to, like, fight for like a purpose, right? Whether they're the Titans that are Eldians fighting for, you know, their family and their homeland, their people, or the people on Paradise Island fighting for their families. You're led to believe that once a lot of these characters, you see a lot of these characters' evolutions and their development in each of their arcs stem from this point when they decide to, like, take a stand, right, and pick something worth fighting for and find a reason for living. Because in this world, objectively, you know, on first glance, there's not a whole lot to live for, or, you know, there's not a whole lot going on outside of wherever you come from. So again, I think it's just that. I think that, like, if you go into this with, like, I kind of just want to, like, kick my shoes off, grab a beer or whatever, and, like, just watch this anime. That's got dope niggas swinging around with swords and cutting necks off giant naked people. You can get that, but there is more if you want to, like, sit down with your notebook and be like, all right, what is this episode really trying to tell me? Or like, oh, what are they implying? I mean, like, some of the theory crafting that I've seen just out of this show alone is, like, you know, it's wild. It's so out there and crazy. And it's just such a testament to, like, the way, again, that these people have crafted the story. I think it's just, I don't know. It's just funny because, like, when a show like this reaches this level of popularity, you know, that brings with it this idea that, like, okay, but that means that it's overhyped, right? Like, that means that it can't all be that good. And I used to be, and I say used to be, like, I'm not, you know, I am one of those people who is very hesitant when something is super popular to jump into it, because I'm like, okay, guys, like, everybody back up. I can't, like, relax. But I don't think that's true. It's not true with this show. It's not. I think this is, you know, one of those few times that, like, something popular is very, very good.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that this show will give you back what you put into it. And I love that because it makes so much sense. There are so many layers of the show. There are even layers that get peeled back once you already watch it and did invest your time and energy, and then you could watch it again, and it's a completely different scenario, right? There's a huge rewatchability factor to this show, to this story, to kind of get it all over again, but from a different perspective. And I think that's one of the things in this show, again, is the challenging of perspectives. And we kind of have been saying this, sprinkling it all throughout this conversation, but your perspectives and your ways of thinking hopefully will be challenged, right, throughout the course of the show, as with the characters that take place in it, right? Eren, Armin, doesn't matter, right? Like, all of these characters are having changing perspectives and having to age and mature in such a way, and especially where we are now, things are totally different than we ever expected them to be. And I think another thing for this one, which grabs, I would say, audiences of a more mature nature, that might be turned off by, you know, your My Hero Academias, to name one, throw it under the bus, or things along that line. Not that it's the worst offender, the most egregious per se, but my point here, Attack on Titan has consequences. I feel like, which is a huge thing for me as a watcher, and I would assume for, like I said, a lot of the people that are there for the more mature style of storytelling in that, right, if I'm phrasing it correctly. Every choice these characters make is for something, but also goes against something at the same time. And there are no scenarios really in which you know that any one character is necessarily safe, right? Save maybe Eren. And to be honest, when you watch the show for the first time, I guess we could say that in hindsight, but when you watch it for the first time, even Eren isn't safe. Like, you know, there's a hot minute where you're like, did they just kill the main character, right? So I feel, and because of the decisions, you know, that he made, and the decisions actually have an impact on this story. It's not that they're going to tell you that if you go by this rule book and you do it this way, that everything's going to end up great as long as you have the power of your friends by your side. No, it's, we failed this mission. Half of us got eaten. We had to sacrifice a lot. We've never had a win over these Titans, etc. I feel like that is it's dark and like morbidly realistic, but it's so necessary, at least in my opinion, for that style of watcher, right? Or that style of fan that might not even be on it just for the fact that it's anime. Might be on it for the fact that it has real consequences within the confines of this world and this story. So they're not going to take away the stakes in a story that's so dangerous, you know, and all the things that it stands for. But yeah, man, that's one of the biggest things for me personally, and I would assume for other people. But it also, like you said, it works for people maybe that are a little bit younger, or people that don't necessarily care about the reasons I just said exactly, because there are intense moments of action, but that are great. There are likable characters. There are hateable characters. There are people that you're rooting for, people that you could relate to, because there's so many different characters of different shapes, sizes, and personalities. And so I think it hits a wide swath in terms of its demographic. It could hit a lot of people, casual anime fans, casual movie, TV watchers, rather, just of all sorts, right? I think that's a point in this show's favor that it has going for it, is that it's able to hit all these different levels, which you might find surprising at first. Now, again, looking in hindsight is a little different, but it's interesting how it's able to do that. But those are my thoughts.
Do you think, because one of the other things you were saying, you know, leads into this and makes sense, that like Attack on Titan does do so many things for so many different kinds of fans, even people who aren't fans of anime. Do you think that there is an anime that exists, or could be an anime that exists, that could be like the next Attack on Titan in terms of like the scale and scope of its storytelling, but also like its reception?
For sure. I mean, this might be the shallow answer or kind of dodging the question in a sense, but I mean, in terms of something that's yet to come out, yeah, that possibility is definitely there. If the question is more poised, you know, in terms of like, is there a manga specifically out right now that hasn't been animated yet, or is there a specifically animated series? I mean, off the top of my head, I don't know anything animated right now for me personally that comes quite as close for all the reasons that I mentioned. But again, that's pure conjecture and personal opinion and subjectivity there. So I'm giving you an arbitrary thing, and keeping it on the lines of arbitrary. I personally do think that, I mean, if there's one other story ever that's, for me, that's hit these levels of, you know, the human condition, I would say it's personally Berserk, but they've never had a good adaptation. So, so I mean, like, if they get it adapted well, I do think that the story for what it is on the level of Attack on Titan personally. But I do think that there is a way that the anime do it, and I think again, it's speaking to try and answer your question here. I think if an anime can do it, which I do believe it can, that it needs to encapsulate these beats of storytelling in such a way that doesn't turn off more mature audiences, but also is welcoming to potentially younger audiences, right? Yeah. I feel like that's something that's a pitfall that a lot of these anime or shows, movies, etc., just cinema in general has, is that you kind of a lot of times have to double down in terms of like, where are we going with this, right? Is this show intended for children? Is this show intended for older adults? What kind of crowd are we trying to hit? That's what we do when we make this podcast, this show, reactions, etc. There's a certain style of audience that we're trying to appease because those are the people that are like-minded. And the beauty about having 2 or 3 of us from time to time is that we offer a little bit different perspectives. But I think in relation to shows, sometimes it's good to double down on what you're good at, but it makes it that much, it alienates you that much more from the opposite audience. And sometimes you're willing to drop that and you're totally cool with it. But, you know, but there's like this unicorn out there sometimes from time to time. And I don't know how it happens, but it does. It's like sugar, spice, and everything nice, you know, and it comes together to make this incredible story that just speaks so closely to that human element that it transcends age. It transcends culture almost, in a sense. It transcends tradition. Like, it just encapsulates everything it means to be human. And I think that any culture, any people, and people from almost any age demographic can enjoy that and appreciate it, at least. And I think that is why this show in particular, beyond just anime watchers, struck such a chord with people just in general, because they were able to relate to that. And at the end of the day, it's a very dark show, and I would say it definitely goes into the more mature corner, but it still, like I said, has those elements that lets people that maybe are a little younger or want to see something that's a little more surface level have their cake and eat it too at the same time. And I don't know what exactly that is. I don't know what show does that. I think it's a very hard mixture. You put a little too much salt, the whole thing blows up. You know, you put a little too, like a little bit, the thing's bland. But I don't know. What do you think?
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit more, I don't know, to be honest. I don't know if so let's put it this way. Like you said, as far as the future, it is kind of weird to talk, like, sure, I'm sure if something does come out in the future that possesses all of the, you know, sugar and spice and everything nice, then yeah, like, it could definitely become the next, or has the potential to. But I don't know. I think there's like something that we just can't like quite crack at, as far as like something that's at the core of the show, as to why it's so well, you know, received and so well appreciated, that like I would be pretty hard pressed to see a show or let's put it this way, I think it's going to be a while, because I think like at least a good decade, because I think that for a while a lot of people are going to try and are going to try and mimic Attack on Titan, right? They're going to try and like use and stay close to and borrow a lot of the themes and you know, imagery or whatever that it uses, but either, like you said, take it too far and double down on it, or maybe not be willing to risk it and go that far, so they won't go as far as they need to, and they won't quite be able to strike that balance. The only two things in my mind that come even remotely close right now is Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man. And I have not read, I've only read the first chapter of Chainsaw Man, so I'm not caught up. So I don't want to speak too much on that, although it does kind of strike me from just general like third eye perception that I've seen, that it seems to lean a little too much into like the gory for the sake of gory, and not to say that the story is at fault for that, but that's the point, right? Is that it's intended for an audience that's like, yeah, you want to see chainsaws come out of a nigga's face, like that's what we're doing here. Where again, Attack on Titan has very grotesque imagery and very, you know, sort of shocking and jaw-dropping things, but it's not there for the sake of doing that to you, right? It's supposed to paint, it's all there to paint this picture of this incredibly dreary, incredibly miserable world that they live in. And I don't know. I really don't. I think it'll be a very long time before we see something, you know, maybe, I don't know. I could eat my words, I guess, but like, it'll be a while before we see a anime that has done what Attack on Titan has done, and that is received as well as Attack on Titan has been received by the community.
Well, there you have it, folks. Those are our thoughts on why Attack on Titan is so damn good. Let us know in the comments down below why you like Attack on Titan, and if you don't, you can see yourself right out the door. But no, let us know why it is you like it, why you think other people like it, what things had a profound impact on you, some of your favorite parts from the show, whether it be from season 1 all the way up to where we are now in season 4. We'd love to know all your thoughts down below. But until next time, we will catch you on the flip. Peace.
Peace.
Ninjas are samurais, blazing the kunais. Find me in the leaf of the cloud, screaming out Bankai. We just some ghouls though, who like seeing parts fly.